enough. It's time for the main event. And for that, how many of you are in New Orleans or from New Orleans? No, for you, you have no need for an introduction to General Russel Honoré. But for those of you who are not, know just two things. He did heavy-duty service in Korea twice, once as a lieutenant and one as the commanding officer of the largest military unit there, in which he had significant flood control response responsibilities, among others. And where he earned a reputation as being very tough and very humane. There were stories about his humanity over there that are for a beer and for another day. The story I wanted to tell you was just the remarks of our former mayor about his service here in New Orleans following Katrina. Quote, New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin, who has gone on to the same kind of glory that so many politicians do in Louisiana, but has the same gift of insight in people that others do, including Edwin. They know people. And said, now I will tell you this. This is at the time of Katrina. And I give the president some credit for this. He sent me one John Wayne dude down here that can get some stuff done. And that man's name is General Honoré. And he came off this doggone chopper and he started cussing people and started moving. And he's getting some stuff done. So what better person following a military career to engage in this new war and create an army to do it with? And that's what he's here to tell us about. And once again, we're in the presence that we've been lucky enough to be almost every time that we've done one of these. We're in the presence of greatness. Thank you.
We will not show the video. In the interest of time, we had a B-roll video here that talked a little about Katrina and the great disaster that it was and how we started a recovery. But we're late in the hour. I pity all of you for having such a sorry life that on Saturday night at 6 o'clock, in the most exciting city in America, you would be here talking about bugs and gas. This is a prop I use, but it's an actual machine that is used to test for chemicals. I wear it when I go to the legislature. And they all ask me, well, what is that? And I explained it to them. But I really got it for when I go to St. Rose. Because the story tonight and when I go to Bayou Corn. I'm here tonight because people in the community called Bayou Corn about 2 years ago, come this June, called me and said, hey, General, we got a problem. We've had subsidence. The salt dome is collapsing. We've got gas in the community. The state's not paying attention to us. The federal government's not paying attention to us. Could you help us? And I went to the Pierrepont Library and met with the citizens of Bayou Corn. In short, what I learned from that is our democracy has been hijacked. For a long time, it hijacked the legislature and local parish governments. And we witnessed last year that our democracy, another branch of the government was hijacked, and that's our judiciary. In that, we passed a retroactive law in Louisiana that made the right to sue illegal. So we made a step backwards. But don't worry, lawyers. You will see, those of you that might see it, is a German magazine just published the article, Der Spiegel, and there's a quote in there, and actually it's a misquote, but it's actually closer to the truth than what I said. It says that our government has been hijacked by the oil and gas business, and they're the richest people in Louisiana, And the other group of rich people are the lawyers. Actually, I said the damn lawyers, with all due respect. And I said the ones that work for all the gas, and that's where the translation came up. She just said the lawyers, which is true. The two most prominent, economically solvent group in this state. And for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to show you why. When you go outside of this state and I speak at disaster rim conferences, there's always a lawyer there that says, Louisiana, the most litigated state in America. And people sit back and say, oh. And the Louisiana lobbyists down in Baton Rouge pranced that around the legislature going back and forth, all of them lawyers. Most litigated state, hurting business. And then on the other side, they said, the fastest growing business sector in the South in the United States is right here in Louisiana. So which one of them are you going to believe? We're the most litigated state because we've got laws that are filled with exceptions and exemptions. To quote Mr. Willie Fontenot, a career state worker who helped many poor communities around the state defend themselves against toxins and pollutants. He said, General, we got the law. We got the Clean Air Act. We got the Clean Water Act. The problem in Louisiana is not that we don't have the law. It's the exceptions and exemptions that's the problem. And lawyers, future lawyers, and wannabe lawyers, that's where we're going to split the hairs. What are the exceptions and the exemptions in the Clean Water Act? Sometime I wake up in the morning, I wish we didn't have the EPA. Because they give the perception that they're doing something. They give the perception that they're protecting the people. Sometime I wake up in the morning, I wish we didn't have DEQ. Because again, they give the perception that they're protecting the people. And ladies and gentlemen, the biggest lie told in the democracy, that we're here for you and we're protecting you. The EPA report reported in 2009, the biggest challenge in Louisiana is that the Louisiana regulators, DEQ and DNR, spend more time defending the oil and gas company than they do defending the people. And that is a challenge we have, and that's why all you lawyers will have opportunity to get rich. But some of you will defend the oil and gas companies in court, and the others of you will try to prosecute them, as we had back a little while ago with Rock Palumbo. Before I forget, you'll see a little piece of paper on your desk. If you want to participate, this is a texted service, that if you see something, say something. If you smell something, you know, you walk around New Orleans and every now and then a visitor comes and says, what is that smell? And say, well, they're probably buying the sugar cane. Ladies and gentlemen, you and I both know that secret. It's not sugar cane. We don't burn sugar cane in February. It's something coming out of a refinery from someplace. It's a toxic smell and it blows away. If you smell something, say something. Call this number and report it. Call the state police. And if you don't report it, nobody will. And that is a call to action for the people of Louisiana. See something, say something, and do something, which is the reporting. Next slide, please. And I do have a mic here. There we go. I'm not going to talk about this. Next slide. For those of you that are geographically challenged, this here's a map of the United States of America. and here we are. This is the Mississippi River, known by the Native Americans as the mother, the father of the waters. It's something you ought to expect if you live next to something called the father of the waters. It's probably going to flood. And this big river has flooded many times, 1912, 1927, 1936. And it's the beginning of a great story of a land of many riches. With the natural resources in the state of Louisiana, we should be the most well-resourced state in America in terms of public facilities. I looked at the student lounge there, and I go to law schools all over the country, or a couple of them anyhow. Go compare that student lounge with the one at the University of Virginia. No comparison. We should be the most well-resourced state in America in terms of public facilities. We're the third largest energy producer. Do we have the best roads? Do we have the best education system, undergraduate? Do we have the best healthcare system? So what is the problem? We'll get to that in 1 second. What happened in Katrina has happened before. It can happen again. This coastline has been deteriorated because oil and gas companies over the last 50 years have done enormous damage to our wetlands. Wetlands that they refuse to clean up. Wetlands that they own over 70% of now. They own most of the wetlands. There's a little known law, we'll see if the legislature will do their job this year, that if that land goes underwater, it reverts to the control of the state of Louisiana. We got a case right down in Vermilion Parish, no, not me. I use that word we loosely. I'm a poor veteran living on his pension. There's a case right down here in Vermilion Parish where a family has taken the state to court because the state reclaimed their land. That family was receiving $120,000 a month royalties. Land that's been in their families for 200 years. The state took that property back. We're going to see if the state take the land back from Texaco that's in Vermilion Parish. They got over 100,000 acres. They pay $64,000 tax. They pay 50 cents an acre tax on the wetlands that they take all from. They got pipelines run through it, and they lease the land out to hunting clubs. And the hunting clubs become their own private security force because they put posted signs up. Now, how do you like that for a deal? That's what's going on. A lot of work here for you lawyers. So the purpose of this is to show you that we live in an area that's vulnerable, and as far as future natural disasters, every year American population moves closer and closer to water. With the dynamics of weather as we see it, the increased probability of surge, and we've lost the wetlands protection, the city of New Orleans and points south are going to be in more and more danger of surge, of water, flooding. We lose more homes to flooding every year than any other event in terms of natural disaster. We're going to become more vulnerable. Our coastline is being destroyed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the weapon I use today is words. I used to be commander in infantry division with 18,000 soldiers, 190 tanks in South Korea, 100 helicopters, half of them attack helicopters, and artillery that could reach Pyongyang. This is my weapon now. Words. I ask you if you believe in anything that's been said here tonight. I want you to go on social media, and I want you to tweet or say something on Facebook about it. This is the strongest weapon we have. Words to inform the people of Louisiana who believe that the oil and gas company is working to their benefit. People who are quite happy to have a job, get a house, and get a new pickup truck every 5 years are quite content the way this is working. But I'm here to tell you our democracy has been hijacked. We need you to speak up. As a reward, those of you that tweet or Facebook, the first 4, you students that do something, I'll give you a free book. Is that a deal? A little motivation. And Tulane, you're short on tweeting. I've been watching this summit. Get that machine out and roll it. You have 1 or 2 active participants down here from the group, but the rest of you need to get on to it. You older lawyers, you need to get in here because people want to hear from you. If you don't speak up, who's going to speak up? You know the damn law. If you don't say something about it, everybody thinks it's okay. It's going to be okay for the people of St. Rose to be poisoned. It's okay for them to sit around at night and have to go to the hospital and get to the hospital and be told it's not the sulfur that's coming out of IMTT and Shell, it's your lifestyle. We got to stop telling the people of Louisiana that. You lawyers need to get on the side of the people because you got people here that are sick. Our children that live on the fence line of these plants have 8 times the amount of asthma as people that don't live on the fence line. The cancer rate is off the chain. You cannot get the true facts out the tumor center, tumor registry, because it's paid for by the Chemical Association. So get real when people talk with authority about the tumor registry in Louisiana. It's a joke. And it's a serious joke, but we need to do something about it. Again, it gives the appearance that we're doing something. Next slide. I don't do weapons. This was a horrifying fact when people who buy corn asked me to come down there, which is a repeat of an old piece. Go back one second. No, we're going crazy here. I spent 37 years, 3 months, and 3 days defending this Constitution of this country. And when we got here, we're not only fighting a company, we're fighting our own government. When we went to the legislature last year and talked about a modern air monitoring system, what did we end up with? We ended up arguing against the state agency, DEQ. Ann Rawls brought a lady in from St. Bernard Parish. 18-year-old son with testicular cancer. Lived 3 miles from a refinery. The congressman, they were almost in tears. And he said, hey, we want to hear what DEQ say. The DEQ representative came up and said, you know what? We don't need any darn 21st century air monitoring system. After all, it's going to cost the plant money. This is a state agency. Our own state agency testified against 21st century modern air monitoring system. The one like they have in Richmond, California. So what the state show up with? They show up with an old worn out van. Looked like a throwback from the 1960s. Kind of looked like an old hippie van. Called a Mammoth or some name like that. Then they bring some buckets out, 5-gallon buckets. Ladies and gentlemen, we got computers that can do that 24/7. You can go online and see the one operating at Richmond, Virginia. Yet we're stuck with 1970s technology. That's the problem. So that statement that this gentleman made, very renowned for the pictures that he took of what America used to look like before we started polluting it. That the biggest people we fight is the government here in the state of Louisiana and the federal government. Next slide. Now this is something you ought to be proud of. This is my law team. When I go out to a hearing, if I'm lucky, there's a Tulane law student there. 3rd-year law student. Taking on the state of Louisiana. Saying you ought not put a transfer station 400 feet from these people's house in Bell River, on the river side of the levee. Can you believe that? We're going to put a transfer station with big pumps and large tanks the side of this room on the other side of the levee, on the flood side of the levee. Can you believe that? This 3rd-year law student come in and show them why they shouldn't do this. The state's already temporarily approved the permit. The Corps engineer said yes. 400 feet from these people's front door. They want to come park barges because the government is approved and the Coast Guard is bringing fracking water here from all over the country on our river system, bringing it in and going dumping it in the Chapelai Basin. That's where it's going. In injection wells. Permits that were approved years ago to handle brine water, primarily in little oil residue from conventional drilling. Those of you that are in this business, you know what's in that chemicals that are in that fracking water. This goes way beyond brine and a little oil and a little naturally forming nuclear waste. It's a lot more than that. No. The secret sauce that each company have is a secret, trade secret. So we've got them now injecting this in old metal pipes. What happened when you put that type of corrosive stuff in the metal pipes in a well inside the Chapelai Basin? And our government has already approved this. A lot of work for you lawyers. Even if you want to be lawyers, a lot of work for you. because we've got to stop this. This is a crying shame that we are putting chemicals known to be hazardous back into the ground inside a swamp or wetlands. This is a crying shame. Shame on us. And who we go in there with? A third-year law student. Take it, skin them, gut them, and they go yes, and 2 weeks later they approves it. That's what probably will happen. They will approve this. The weapon we had was everybody in that community stood up and said no. The parish president said no. The zoning board for the parish said no. The parish president said no. And a political appointee in DNR said yes. So now we're having a hearing. The best thing we can do is hopefully get this in court and hopefully get it not before just a judge, because many of the judges, like Judge Holloway in Baton Rouge, will say, I reviewed this. This is a normal thing. And I don't think y'all have the right information here, so we're going to go with the company. That's how he rules on there. Just got reelected. Approved the dump in Baton Rouge. Approved the RSD in New Orleans, putting the school on the Booker T. Washington High School here in New Orleans, home of the old Silver City dump, that same judge. So when I tell you they own the politicians, they also own the judiciary. Because when he made that particular ruling, it was 2 weeks before his re-election, for which he had to raise money. Who do you think he'd get money from? Think he'd get it from the fence line communities? He'd get it from the industry. And they're re-elected. So that's what we're up against, and these are lawyers. We had one down in New Iberia again, a third-year law student, stood up against 7 corporate attorneys with AGL, Atlanta Gas and Light, on the Lake Panua suit. Whether we're going to grant a environmental impact to be done on Lake Panua. Lake Panua, you might remember, is a place in Jefferson Island where 30 years ago collapsed, and it sucked barges into that and forever changed that ecology. From fresh water to now it's fully brine. Next slide. Okay, you lawyers, this come off Wikipedia. I don't know anything about this. But study this, because this is what's happening. This is what's happening to our government. And it's not just Louisiana, it's in the federal government too. Why else would we be allowing fracking water to be put back into the ground? Why? Because they gave an exception and exemption, quoting Willie Fontenot, to the Clean Water Act. Because fracking water is poisonous, it's toxic, but it's not classified as hazardous material in the state of Louisiana, thanks to the Louisiana legislature. We give exceptions and exemptions to it, so we allow it to be stored in abandoned oil wells. Exceptions and exemptions to the Clean Air Act. Congress know about it. The White House know about it. Everybody know about it. But you see, we got to say we want to build up the economy. In order to do that, we're across the road and we're allowing fracking like crazy and it's killing our water. In this book, chapter 2, I clearly state the next wars will be over water. They will not be over oil. We got less clean water than we had yesterday, and we have less clean water tomorrow than we got today. And as a result of what we're doing to it, we're over-polluting the water. And in our case, the Sentinels, those on watch at the mouth of the Mississippi River, we got an 800 square mile dead zone in the Gulf that's been created through fertilizer and other stuff that's been flushed through. We grab some of it in New Orleans to drink, and the rest of it go out into the Gulf and create a big algae bloom that dies and go to the bottom and kill all the microscopic life. 800 square miles. Who's going to clean that up? I'm telling you, the challenge of what we're trying to do, meet the demand for the world for petrochemical products here in Louisiana, will also create great opportunities. Because this mess that's been made, which started 50 years ago when we thought Mother Nature would clean itself up, and now that we've come to know better, we shall create opportunity for those who will create technologies that will clean this up. There's no reason why we can't clean fracking water. There's no reason why we can stop fracking wells from emitting benzene and methane. There's no reason why we can't do it. We don't have an option. If we don't get off this carbon train, as our friend said yesterday, at one time we were junkies for oil, taking it from all over the world. Now we're becoming self-sufficient and exporters of oil and gas. We're becoming dealers, just like you do in the drug business. First you use it, you use enough of it, then you become a dealer to sell it to other people. And it's destroying our natural resources. We're going to pay a price in Louisiana, and we are paying that price. Rock Palamo and his team were up here earlier telling you one of the prices, the impact on our coastline. And it's because of this. Our government has been hijacked. It's because of this. Next slide. This is a location we got going on in North Louisiana, Minden, Louisiana. The United States government, the United States Army, my old outfit, got 16 million pounds of propellant that's used in firing artillery shells. And over time, we used to burn that extra propellant when we left the battlefield. You've seen these things on television, where they're loading they actually were loaded from this end, the shell into the artillery. Well, depending on how far and how high you want to go, we end up with extra propellant bags. Up until 10 years ago, we used to burn those bags before we left the training area or wherever we were in the world. Well, the EPA Clean Air Act made the federal government, which we were part of, follow the Clean Air Act to the law, which forced us from doing what? We stopped burning it in itty-bitty piles. And the Army collected it to a point where now have 16 million pounds at Camp Minden, Louisiana. And the Army put it in disposal. A contractor came through, lowest bid contractor got the job, stored it at Camp Minden in 2012. We had a big explosion. The state police go in there and say, "What is this?" Well, this is a joint venture place now, run by the state, open for business. So where do you think these old boys from West Virginia came put this stuff? In Louisiana. And oh, by the way, we don't have the authority in DNR, or they don't have cars left because they sold the cars to go out and inspect this stuff. So it's sitting up there in Camp Minden. And it has a life shelf where it's going to blow up. So the judge said, "Okay, Army, you put up $30 million, EPA, you go get rid of this stuff." The EPA solution, because they're in Louisiana, they want to burn it. Just put it in a big old metal tray and burn that sucker at 80 tons a day to get rid of it. And these people, this lady right here, leading a team with an LSU professor. The only time in 2 years we've got an LSU professor to stand up on the side for clean air and clean water. Only one time. And he's a biology professor at Tulane. And I know there are exceptions to what I just said. Dr. Wascom is one of them. He's retired. He helps us every day. Stood up and started a movement. And because of the use of the internet, they have 7,000 people that have signed up and said no to open burning. You with me? That one professor, that's the power of a professor who comes with the knowledge and the skill along with Dr. Supra to say no, that empowered and inspired the people to get the information they need. And it's taken up to this time. We got a 90-day extension from the EPA. And they're going through a process now to determine the right method to use other than burning this and exposing the people in Minden, Louisiana to more polluted air. That's the challenge for them. Next slide. That kind of says it all. We got a problem. This is what it looked like. Next slide. Exceptions and exemptions. You could go online and look at this and see whether the chemical plant is near to your home. Because between here and Baton Rouge, you've got 100 plus. One of the laws we're going to ask this year again in the legislature is 21st century air monitoring. Brought up by our own Bucket Brigade right here out of New Orleans. What is 21st century air monitoring? Well, it would be connected to the fence, and it is what it described. 24/7, it would be constantly cueing people and giving people early warning that a release has happened at the plant. The plants don't want this. And their lawyers don't want it because it would mean what? Liability. So in the meantime, we got people. Our problem now is when you stack plants up, and you put one here, and you put one here, and you put one there, we could have plant fratricide. Where if one plant goes out and the wind is blowing this way, we could go 2 plants that are now incapable of responding and running their operations. That's the challenge we have. Because now the system relies on them picking the phone up and calling the state. And the state then called the first responders. The first responders at most of the plants in Louisiana, listen to this, are volunteer fire department. Because the state has not mandated that these plants pay for a modernized, distinguished fire departments like you would see in New York or you might see here in New Orleans. Think about Saturday night, LSU playing football, Tulane playing football, and you call out the volunteer fire department. What kind of damn response do you expect to get? That's what we're up against, ladies and gentlemen. We had a bill introduced last year in our own state legislature where the Oil and Gas and Chemical Association petitioned the state of Louisiana to make it possible to make it a secret what was being produced in the plants. This would make it secret so the first responders wouldn't know, and they did it under the name of Homeland Security. And one of those darn firemen out there, volunteer firemen, might try to do something to the plant. Well, you know why they did it. They don't want the community, nor do they want anybody in the legal system to know what's going on in the plant. That's the problem we got. Next slide. A lot of work for you lawyers. We don't have a standard for the age on the pipeline. How often do you have to get your car inspected, son?
Once a year.
Okay. Who inspects these pipelines? Self-regulated, self-reported. And to quote the chief of the state police, well, these people don't want accidents to happen. Brilliant, isn't it? That's what goes out in the court of first opinion. They show up. I've heard the quote twice. We've got dead people, and the senior officer there said, "Oh, yes, sir, we've got 2 fatalities, but none of the chemicals went beyond the fence line." How the hell do you know that? Is there something in that fence that prevents the chemicals? It's got to be taught in the school system here. It has to be a loose interpretation of science. A lot of work for you lawyers. Look at what they've done in our state. Why are we the second poorest state? Why have we put a value on all those products that go through those fence lines, through those pipelines, before it goes up or come back out? Why haven't we put a value on that? Half of the barges in America are in the state of Louisiana on any given day. What kind of value have we put on that? We shouldn't have a problem with roads. The lounge that these students use in here should look like the one in the University of Virginia. There shouldn't be no bumpy roads in New Orleans. 30% of the water, drinking water in New Orleans shouldn't be lost because of bad sewer pipes. We should be the best resource state in America for public services. Every kid should have a laptop and connected to the internet. Every class should have 3 teachers in it so we can catch up. The resources are there. The resources are here. We go back to that statement made earlier. You understand? That we've got a government that has been captured basically by an industry. Next slide. Now, you may not like what I say, but remember, I'm speaking for free tonight. So, we got a problem. Next slide. Baton Rouge, water and air. To quote the great Sonny Krantz, speaker for, he's a PAO for Texas Brine, an outfit out of Texas that runs the salt dome at Bayou Corn. I was on a talk radio show and beating up Texas Brine for destroying this pristine community and that the air was still threatened. That's why people were gone. And the public affairs officer for this company called in and said, I just want to call in to you, Jim, to tell you this. I got it on good authority from the DEQ at Baton Rouge that the air at Bayou Corn is safer than the air in Baton Rouge. And quote, the best weapon we have in Louisiana is ask the legislature a question about how they protected their water and air. Let them talk. The problem is we don't get the audience. Let them talk. When was the last time you heard a word from the lady that runs DEQ in Baton Rouge? Have you ever heard a quote from her? The best thing we can do is get them talk. When that legislator ask that DEQ person, should we have 21st century air monitoring with a black box in every plant? So in the event we have something like BP happen, we can open that box and we can tell what they were talking about. We can tell how many people were on duty. And the state police and the Coast Guard would be immediately notified. And the national response team would be immediately notified. And that state worker came up, the best defense we got is the mic. And he said, no, because it would cost the company money. That's the quote, right? Wasn't it there? That's what he said. And it's time, every case we take to the legislature and we say we need to do this, our DNR and our DEQ come right behind us and say, no, this shouldn't be done. No control. And it's all based on the exceptions and exemptions to the Clean Air and Clean Water Act. That's Baton Rouge. Two companies, Exxon, Georgia Pacific, use 66 million gallons of drinking water a day. The state legislature passed a law maybe 10, 15 years ago called the right of capture. That if you sit on water, you can take it. Baton Rouge water is becoming salted. Salt is coming in and is going into the Southern Hill Aquifer. And there's going to come a point in time when Baton Rouge will be, like you friends down here in New Orleans, you're going to be drinking Mississippi River water. When I captured this and went to an Exxon executive, he said, General, we got a right to that water just like the people. Because corporations are people too. Another quote. Well, if you're a people too, I'd go to jail. I never seen y'all go to jail. They're people too. They got a right to that water. And he said, oh, by the way, we pay for that water. Then my good friend Hayes Towns told me, he said, General, the state allowed them to pay $5 a million gallons. That's what they pay. How many of you get a million gallons of water? $5. Exxon does. How many of you pay 50 cents an acre for land property? That's what they pay for the marshland. And them and the big landowners. So what we got, this is what Baton Rouge look like. Do we need Exxon refinery? Yeah. I drive a car, get 15 miles a gallon. I want them to do it, but they got to do it safely. We've got to invent new technologies. Our engineering schools need to be as busy as you lawyers coming up with new technologies to reduce the amount of poisons that's going into the air. Are you with me on that? We can do this. That plant helped save World War II. Speaking of that, we got an admiral here, Admiral Wyman, correct? World War II. And he also worked to help people protect themselves from pollution. We got a pollution problem in Louisiana. In July, Al Gore, one of his people called in June and said, hey, Honoré, we want you to come up to the Global Climate Summit and talk about climate change. I said, well, tell the Vice President I won't do that. He said, what do you mean? We're watching what you're doing now. And then we saw the Newsweek article. I said, I can't talk about climate change. We stand in awe. You want me to go to something that people still arguing about? We got a pollution problem. And the solution, America, is everybody need to fight pollution where you live. And you can see that discussion. We talked for a half hour. But it was all about this topic. What's happening to our air and our water? We're going to have less clean water tomorrow than we had today because of what we did to it today. Next slide. Bayou Corn sinkhole, now 40 acres, started off the size of a tennis court. People are evacuated. Just yesterday, again, the company asked to stop paying people evacuation fees, and the state said, no, you got to continue to pay it for certain members. Now remember, just 3 miles from Bayou Corn is Grand Bayou, lost, destroyed. In a previous legal case, a man-made accident on this Napoleonville salt dome. Grand Bayou gone, now Bayou Corn is threatened. The worst case scenario for this Bayou Corn is that if we get complete subsidence and it goes into Bayou Corn itself, it could get into Lake Verret. How many of you familiar with Lake Verret? One of those beautiful bodies of water you've ever seen. It's going to change the ecology. And I've told you, just like I told the people at EPA who said they didn't know anything about salt dome. If you don't have an expert on salt dome, then why in the hell are you allowing them to drill in a salt dome? Hello? I asked the people at the state, if you don't have a salt dome expert, why are you allowing them to drill in the salt dome? What is wrong with us? 2 places on the same salt dome destroyed because that water turned to salt. And if you get into Bayou Corn, it's going to go into Lake Verret. I'm telling you, you want to see the President of the United States, whoever he is. Ladies and gentlemen, we just had a major environmental disaster in the state of Louisiana. It's going to be on the White House lawn if we don't do something. That's the problem. Next slide. That's trees going under water. Next slide. I'm almost done. You bean counters. Next slide. I'm young enough to know the only thing between you and this party that's going to happen is this speech. And I'm old enough to know you're not going to remember much of this, so I'll be quick. Next. That's the lake. That's what it looked like in Niagara Falls in Iberia Parish. That's what it looked like when it happened. Next slide. There's another little explosion. Multi-Chem exploded in Iberia Parish. Fined, and the state never collected the money from them. Bought out by Halliburton, and moved to Maurice, Louisiana. One of the sausage capitals in the world. If you ever want to get some good chicken sausage boudin, go to Maurice, Louisiana. You go right down the road and you see a sign that says Halliburton. The plant is 700 feet from the front door of a farmer's home. Unincorporated, not zoned area. Property sold to Halliburton by the fire chief. The CEO of the plant is a nephew of one of the parish council members. Go figure that out. How did that happen? How did they get that permit? No notification to these farmers. You want to go see it? Just go to Maurice. You'll see it. And stop and get you some good chicken sausage. Next slide. This is a mess that never stopped giving. Next slide. Next slide. You remember this one. Off the coast, down off Grand Isle. Most of them Filipino workers. Several of them burned. Next slide. This is a horrible case. Denied by industry. Drug into court. And that still hadn't been fully remediated. Now you can go in Vermilion Parish, Terrebonne Parish, and you go see the Port-au-Chien Indians. The chief there said 40 years ago, he used to see alligators. Now they're seeing sharks. You don't need to watch television and Anthony Bourdain or who the hell he is talking about what's going on around the world. Just go to the Gulf Coast and go down there with some of the fishermen. The older fishermen, have them show you what's happening to our coastline. People want to call this climate change. It is pollution. Get over it. It's pollution that people continue to do to destroy our coastline. Who are these companies? Where are they from? Where is BP from? British Petroleum. I normally don't say BP. England. Where is Shell from? Where is Motiva from? And where else? And Shell.
Texas.
Well, They're kind of a foreign country, but you still got to claim them. A Citco. Don't let me start with the chemical plants. Sassel in Mossville. There are no birds in Mossville. How can that happen? Surrounded by 11 power plants, chemical plants. There are no birds left. The water has been contaminated. We put a water system in as a part of an EPA ruling. They put pipes with asbestos. The water never worked right. 6 months ago, we have a throwdown phone call with the parish council and said, hey, if you don't fix the water and connect these people to Westlake water, we're going to bring a convoy of trucks out of Baton Rouge and we're going to deliver water to Mossville. Because the state won't do it, we're going to bring water. We'll find some people with some trucks and we're going to bring Red Cross water to Mossville. They said, please don't do that. That'd be bad for us. I said, that's the intent, buddy. And within 24 hours, they connected that community up to the Westlake water, and the company, South African Oil, paid off the debt of that water company, which was over $300,000. Again, it's the power of information. I deal in the court of public opinion. You damn lawyers make your money in the courtroom. We get people to do things by exposing the ugly that they're doing. And because they have found a bypass to legal law called exceptions and exemption, we take them to the court of public opinion. But do you want the public to know what you're doing to these poor people? The case down in Mossville, we got an elderly lady, 75 years old. The company offered them $100,000 plus 50% of the value of the house. Something crazy. The amount to this lady was $150,000. She said, look, I'm 75, I'm a widow, I'm living on my paycheck, on my government subsidy. Please, give me $170,000. You know what they told her? No. Take it or leave it. Now, if she took that $150,000, here's the kicker. South African Oil Company, which the state gave a couple $100 million to, said, okay, before you get your check, you got to show that your property is thoroughly cleared of any liens. Well, what happened to most of these people? They took FEMA road home money to put new roofs on the house after Hurricane Rita and Katrina. They got to pay FEMA back. And state law, any money they get, they got to pay tax on. Now, is that fair? Well, there's an exception to exemption in Louisiana law, probably written up by one of our great law graduates, who is now a legislator. Wrote it up so we are friendly to business. Guess what? That lady's still sitting there. The difference is between $150,000 and $170,000. That's a true story. And it's happening right now in Louisiana. Mossville, no birds left. I'm almost done, Doc. Next slide. That's Mossville. I'll leave that slide with your staff. We got a little paper here we call legislative scorecard, put together by the Green Army. Who's the Green Army? A loose coalition of people. When I started this thing, lawyers told me, hey, Russ, you need to get you some kind of a stature as a nonprofit or something. Get organized, or, get you a building, get you a website. We did get a website. I said, we're not going to organize as a conventional army. We're going to be a guerrilla army. We're about an idea. That anywhere you go, if you can take this idea, you can be a stealth member of the Green Army. Because all we ask you to do is to fight for clean air and clean water. And when people pollute something, make them clean it up. The basic rule that we all learn, you clean up after yourself and you fix what you break. That's the moral law we're going after. Because the law is written by the state of Louisiana, it is corrupt as it is written. Because most of it is written with exceptions and exemption to the Clean Air and Clean Water Act. I almost threw up yesterday when a lawyer said it's the most regulated industry in the state. Yeah, but when you take in the exceptions and exemptions, it's not. And I'm just here to tell you from what I've seen. Next slide. No birds in Mossville. Next slide. Plaquemine Parish is a mess. It's a mess ecologically. It's a mess economically. over half the kids there don't graduate from high school. I went down there during the British Petroleum mess. I was leaving a little snack shop, going down the road. Guy flagged me down. He's a member of the school board. I said, what do you want? He said, we got a problem. They want to rebuild the school in a different way. Okay, what can I do for you? He said, we need your voice. I said, well, I see all these trucks over here where these guys go out and they fly off in a helicopter and go to the rigs. Are these students in this high school in South Plaquemine Parish being trained to go out? Are they getting jobs on these rigs? Or in that Conoco plant? Here's the quote. Sir, they hire 30 people about every month. They hire one African-American male and one woman. That's the quota. The people in this parish are not working in the oil and gas business. Go look at the plates on most of those trucks. They got out-of-state license, and they're from north part of the state. What our kids get, listen at this, is that they go in the ditch and they pick up the beer cans that they throw out when they're leaving Plaquemine Parish. That's right there under Billy Nungesser. South Plaquemine Parish, one of the poorest group of people in America. We can't be proud of this. Look, I didn't spend 37 years defending this country to come back here and see our state taken over by an industry. This has got to be fixed. I can fix it in moral opinion, but you lawyers got to fix this in the damn courts. Because that's the way the democracy was designed to work. What we can't settle among us is settle in the courts. And y'all got a lot of work to do. Because we got to get rid of these exemptions and exemptions. It's killing our people. You don't believe me? Our people are not being killed because of lifestyle. They're being killed because of the air and the water that we drink. And it's coming out every day. We got to fix this. We're not just losing land, we're losing people. We're losing a future generation of young people that won't get a fair shot. Next slide. Vermilion Parish. We talked about that one a little bit earlier. Next one. Go ahead. Next. That's inside of Louisiana. And they're out there. Don't go to the Chaffalaya Basin. It's a shame what's happening in the basin. Next slide. This is St. Tammany Parish. Primarily a red parish when you talk politics. These people, they know if they allow this company in here, a New Orleans-based company that's probably created a lot of jobs in the state. They want to drill the St. Tammany Parish. People in St. Tammany Parish because that's where they want to be, because there is very little industry there. It's a resort-type community. To a lot of people, that's why they moved there, because of the water sports. Next slide. St. Rose, right next to the Destrehan plantation. These people moved here. This community was settled after slavery, after the Emancipation Proclamation. Many of them came right off the Destrehan plantation, where I came from. Now, we got two plants here, IMMT and Shell, Royal Dutch Shell. Let's call it what it is, Royal Dutch Shell. And they're emitting toxins that's making these people sick. Who they call? Called DEQ. 2 days later, somebody show up with 1970s technology. Who they call? They call a volunteer. Stand up, Ann. Stand up, Green Army volunteers. This is about volunteers. Stand up. Come on, Kathy. Stand up. Unpaid volunteers. There's a great quote from something that was happening down in Cuba. And you might have seen this in a movie. But it's a real quote from an actual incident. When the guy said, hey, don't worry. We got our soldiers. They're well trained and well equipped. And the villain said, you got soldiers. But I'm scared as hell because they got volunteers. Because volunteers don't give a shit. They're not worried about if they win the case or not. They're not worried about if they're going to get paid. They're not worried about if they're going to get promoted. And not worried about if they got to break the law to make the point. Because they're going to win their right in the court of public opinion. And I'm telling you what's happening in Louisiana is the same thing that happened in Cuba, 1950s. But nothing but a few renegade students led by a guy by the name of Castro, with 124 students and some bird guns, took over a nation. Why they took it over? Because they had a corrupt government. A government that took the natural resources, used it up, and treated the people like dirt. I'm not professing that's going to happen in Louisiana, but it's the model that would happen in every insurgency around the country. The reason people rise up is that they don't have a voice and the government don't protect them. And there's inequity in the distribution of the resources. It's happening all over the world today. Everywhere you look, go to those flashpoints and that's what you're going to find. For national security, the problem in Syria started over water. The war has already started. When these tribes started to move because they didn't have water, they went into each other's spaces. And that started the war in Syria. Ladies and gentlemen, it's just beginning. The same thing is happening in Africa. Here it's in the courts. I ask you, please, next slide, just about done. Please, we need your help, you lawyers. Whatever side you're going to be on it, but make sure we're looking at fighting pollution. You with me? Because you're not just defending it for yourself, you're defending it for future generations. No generation have an authority to destroy the water for future generations. Next slide. I hope that you will come join us on the 11th of April in Baton Rouge. We're going to have another water festival. For a better name, we can connect with everybody in America over water. Our water is being polluted. It is so bad that both of the lakes next to the state capitol are polluted. The response at the time was the governor said, we'll start a task force. The task force never met. Westinghouse left town. The lakes are still polluted. One of you lawyers want a case? I just gave you one. Make them come back and clean it. Make them pay restitution. Right next to the governor's mansion is a sign. Don't go in the water. Don't do nothing here. There's a few old sick ducks kind of move around sideways in that lake because there's so much pollution in there. That's the American company. Both of the lakes at the state capitol are polluted. Right here in New Orleans, we're trying to put a school on a toxic site. Now, how stupid is that? When is the right hand and the left hand going to link up? And people will say, are we going to take our convention to New Orleans? Well, you know, we heard that there's a bunch of people in St. Rose right at the airport when you land are sick from cancer from a plant. You know that air travels. We think down here that word is not going to get out. It's going to get out. What's going to happen when people find out that our seafood that we had access to has been deteriorated and we're importing oysters from Maryland and New York because the one in the Gulf has been destroyed? People come here for Louisiana seafood. They come here for Louisiana crawfish. The crawfish in the Chapel are being destroyed. The crawfish coming out in our rice field, there are traces of arsenic in our water. And arsenic loves rice. What's going to happen if that becomes an issue that's brought up in the public? Will people come here and eat our food? Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to do something. And I appreciate your time, sir. These are the facts. Go check it out. This is a CDC website that shows you the amount of cancer that we have in Louisiana. And it's just a small representation of the issues we have. I appreciate your patience. We need your support. And the future generations, the unborn children of Louisiana, need your support. God bless you.
I cannot believe that there's a person in this room who would dare ask General Russel Honoré a question. I just can't believe it. I'll give you the answer. What kind of a damn fool question is that? But it's late, and if you're brave enough, we'll handle it. But I think he's given us the ride and the ride out that we all wanted and need. Take what you've heard and learned and enjoyed over the last 2 days. Take it with you. Take it in your head. Take it in your heart. Move it forward. Godspeed. Thank you so much, General. Thank you so much for coming. We have something that you can deliver to the General yourself.
General Honoré, we just wanted to thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll see you in court.
That's it. Thanks so much. Come next year.